Melba in Syria considers Charlie's offer, $20 million for her team if she returns to help with the shipping business. She will participate in a 6-hour military operation without signal, causing Pollard to panic and give up all his assets. Charlie refuses the money, promising Melba a high salary. During lunch, Charlie overhears Dan Mai refusing Chungfeng Su's order to kill a true dragon, and realizes he's being hunted, preparing for Shangri-La. Viewers, this story is getting more and more exciting. So, if possible, don't skip any of the episodes to follow the entire storyline. Thank you.
Chapter 2623. Melba, who was far away in Syria, was indeed very moved after hearing what Charlie said. During this period of time, their classmates were many, and they also encountered a lot of difficulties and dangers in Syria. Although all these dangers were avoided by chance, everyone knew in their hearts that the risk of staying in Syria to shoot documentaries was still very high. Melba felt that if she could really get $20 million in sponsorship from Charlie, it would be a qualitative improvement for everyone's personal safety and for everyone's shooting expenses. Thinking of this, she replied to Charlie, "Mr. Wade, let's do it. I will discuss your suggestion with the people in my team and see what they suggest. If they agree, then I have no opinion." Charlie smiled and said, "That's great. When will you give me a clear conclusion?" Melba hurriedly said, "We are now preparing to participate in a military operation by the local government forces. They are going to attack a small military base of the opposition before dawn. The entire offensive mission is estimated to last 6 hours. I'll give you a final reply before the dark. Do you think it's okay?" When Pollard heard that Melba was going to take part in the military operation, he hurriedly said to Charlie, "Charlie, you must persuade her to not go. This is really a war. The bullet does not grow eyes, just in case she gets wounded. If it hits her, you have to lose half your life if you don't die." Charlie nodded and said, "Then I will try to persuade her." After finishing speaking, he continued to send a voice to Melba, "Miss Watt, I personally suggest that you do not participate in this kind of military operation, or your team will stop going today. Just sit down and have a meeting together and think carefully about my suggestion. If you all agree, I will pass the money immediately, and your team can immediately hire a group of mercenaries from the Blackwater Company to protect your safety. What do you think?" Melba replied, "Mr. Wade, we started preparing for this operation 3 days ago, and my companions have started to install the device in the car now, and it will be time to set off soon, so we will wait until we finish this operation to give you a definite reply." After that, Melba immediately sent another message, "Excuse me, Mr. Wade, we are leaving now. After leaving the base, there will be no communication. Let's talk when we get back." Charlie hurriedly replied, "I still suggest you not to go." However, Melba did not reply this time. Charlie looked at Pollard and said helplessly, "Uncle Pollard, I guess she has already set off." "Hey." Pollard sighed, "I have been studying for half a lifetime. How can I raise such a rebellious daughter? What a crime." Charlie shrugged his shoulders and said, "Uncle Pollard, Syria is at least 6,000 to 7,000 kilometers away from ours. No matter how much you worry, it will be difficult to actually solve the problem. It is better to wait patiently for her reply. I think the terms I gave this time are so generous, they shouldn't refuse." Pollard said with emotion, "Charlie, thank you so much for your work. I need to pay for it." As he said with a bit of sullen emotion, "Since I decided to give up my work and life in the upper class and choose to teach and educate people, almost all the money I can donate at home has been donated, and I have also given a part of Melba's money as charity. Now all my assets are a small villa in here, plus less than 10 million yuan in cash, and all of them in total are just over 20 million. If converted into US dollars, it will be around 3 or 4 million. I'll give you all the money in the house, and I will slowly find a way to pay the rest." Charlie hurriedly said, "Uncle Pollard, don't be so polite to me. To be honest, I came to you and your daughter to help me make money. This little money should be invested in the early stage, and you can rest assured that if Melba is willing to come back and help, I will definitely give her a generous annual salary. If Melba can help me push the ocean shipping business on the right track, I can double the salary." Pollard gratefully said, "Charlie, thank you so much. Don't worry, your uncle will do my best to repay you by then." Charlie bowed slightly and said, "Uncle Pollard, don't be so polite with me." After that, Charlie checked the time and said, "Uncle, you will definitely have classes later. Then I won't disturb you, let's talk another day." Pollard looked at his watch and hurriedly said, "Oh, I almost forgot to mention it. There will be a class right away. Otherwise, Charlie, if you have nothing to do, just stay in my office. Don't worry. When I finish this class, we will have a meal together at noon." Charlie said, "Uncle Pollard, you must be very busy at work. Or maybe you can change the day for dinner." Pollard waved his hand. "I'm busy, but there is always time to rest. Besides, let's meet again. To be honest, I am really kind in my heart, and I still want to chat with you more." With that, Pollard said earnestly, "But this also depends on your time. If you have something to do at noon, let's change the day. Anyway, we are in the same city, so we can look for opportunities." Charlie was actually fine at noon, mainly because he was afraid of staying here and delaying Pollard's work. In fact, he still wanted to chat more with Pollard, because he didn't know much about his mother in the past 20 years. It's easy to meet a classmate of his mother's from back then. He really wants to take this opportunity to learn more about his mother's story from Pollard. So he opened his mouth and said, "If this is the case, then Uncle Pollard, you should be busy first, I am here waiting for you." "Okay." Pollard nodded excitedly, and said, "Sit and wait. I have 50 minutes of this class. I'll be here right after the class." Charlie nodded and watched Pollard leave with the teaching plan materials. He was doing nothing by himself, so he sat down on the reception sofa in Pollard's office. Just when he had nothing to do, he searched for information about Melba and found that this girl was really amazing. She had excellent grades at Stanford, and she had even published on the official website of Stanford University, and the official website also has her details. There is a photo. Melba in the photo has light golden curly hair and a sweet and flawless face, full of femininity. Charlie really couldn't understand, for such a beautiful and excellent girl, there must be many men madly pursuing her on weekdays, but why she prefers women. However, Charlie didn't entangle too much with this kind of thing. He was very open to these things, and his orientation in this area was completely personal freedom. Even the parents have no right to interfere, this is what he thought. Just when he turned off Melba's search results, his mobile phone suddenly received a call from Archway. Charlie answered the phone and heard Archway say nervously on the other end of the phone, "Master, someone in our school inquired about Wuqi and also inquired about Luna's original matter. Could it be that someone wanted to target you?" Charlie was slightly startled. He remembered that Luna was the girl who almost committed suicide by jumping into the lake at the hands of Wuqi's psychological suggestion. And this Luna was also Wuqi's girlfriend before the accident. Now someone inquired about Wuqi's affairs and found out on her head. Is it to find out the whole story of Wuqi's accident? Charlie didn't quite understand why someone would investigate Wuqi's affairs now. After all, Ragnar already knew that Wuqi's accident was his own work. As a stakeholder, the Wu family would definitely not take off their pants and F at RT, and then came to investigate again. Therefore, the only possibility is that the people who are investigating Wuqi now are not sent by the Wu family. Charlie thought about it carefully. Most of the people he had offended were already cold, and those who were not cold were nothing more than the Su family in China and the Hogwitz family in the United States. The two families are under his own hands and have suffered heavy losses, and he's aware that they are in the dark. If they want to find him, they can only clear the fog layer by layer. So Charlie immediately deduced that the person who was investigating information about the Wuqi incident at this moment must have an inseparable relationship with one of the two. So he asked Archway, who is investigating Wuqi's affairs, "Have you seen them?" "I saw them." Archway said, "It's two people, one old and one young." Charlie asked again, "Where are these two people now?" Archway said, "I met them in the small square outside the teaching building just now. It is not clear where they are now." Charlie thought that the teaching building was on the opposite side, so he walked to the window and looked downstairs. Sure enough, on the small square opposite, he saw two people, one old and one young, walking out. The old man among them seemed faintly unusual temperament on his body. Charlie once felt this kind of feeling in Lai Qinghawa, but the temperament of this person seems to be more important than that of Lai Qinghawa. Weak. Charlie has been particularly keen on this feeling since he obtained the 9 profound Sky Sutras, so he immediately realized that this old man is either a feng shui master like Qinghua, or a metaphysics-like master Yu Jinghai from Hong Kong. So he took out his mobile phone, called Isaac, and said, "Mr. Isaac, there are 2 people in Aurous Hill College of Finance and Economics, one old and one young, and they seem to be visiting things related to Wuqi. Arrange for someone to keep an eye on them. But you must remember to choose the strongest person to observe from a distance, don't behave in the dark, and report any movements to me in time." Isaac hurriedly said, "Okay young master, I will send a few men who have served as scouts in special forces." At the same time, the small square in front of the teaching building. After questioning many students, Mike couldn't help but whisper to Dan Mai, "Grandpa, I'm just asking about Wuqi's affairs so openly, if that big man is really in this university or in the vicinity. If the university has his informants, wouldn't we be exposed soon?" Dan nodded and said faintly, "It is right to be exposed. The other party is a real dragon. It is far from being an existence that I can see through. If his deity is unwilling to come forward, no matter how hard we try, it will be in vain. It's better to disclose our purpose directly. If it attracts his attention, maybe he will take the initiative to show up." Mike asked again, "Grandpa, will the other party anger us and treat us as enemies?" Dan said, "If he is a person who must report to you or is suspicious, he will definitely treat us as enemies, but such a person has a narrow belly, and it is generally impossible to have a true dragon fate. The true lifestyle of the true dragon must be broad-minded and clear-cut, and will never be malicious to us just because we came to investigate Wuqi." While speaking, Dan continued, "Besides, when we came this time, we did not intend to disadvantage him. The Su family wanted us to find out his identity, but I was not prepared to intervene in the fight between the Su family and him. So even if we find him, I will not reveal his identity to the Su family." Mike couldn't help asking, "Grandpa, we came to investigate the enemy behind the Su family at the request of the Su family. If we don't help them, wouldn't it be a violation of the contract spirit?" Dan glared at him and said angrily, "Stupid. At the moment when we planned to come to Aurous Hill, we are no longer doing things for the Su family." After speaking, Dan continued, "My purpose in coming to Aurous Hill is indeed to find this big man, but I want to see if we can find a chance from this big man. Otherwise, if it's just the Su family who wants to deal with this big man and let me find him for them, how can I agree? Let me fight against a man of real life, even if they give me more money, I can't agree." Immediately, Dan said again, "If we really find this big man, although I will not disclose his situation to the Su family, I will definitely refund the money to the Su family that they gave me. When I go back, I will treat the Su family as half of it for free." Mike said embarrassingly, "Temporary breach of contract is also a form of lack of contract spirit. If a person loses credibility, how can he gain a foothold in society in the future?" Dan shook his head helplessly and reminded, "You have to remember that the more you believe in feng shui Mingshu, the more you should not fight against Mingshu. The opponent is a true dragon. People like us are definitely not his opponents, cannon fodder at best. We can't stand on the opposite side of him, do you understand?" Mike nodded slightly, "I do my grandpa." Dan gave a hum and said, "Okay, let's find a place to eat, it is almost noon, and then come around in the afternoon." Charlie didn't care too much about Dan's grandparents. Whether it is a master of feng shui or a master of metaphysics, as long as they are hostile to him, then they will have no return for the first time. Moreover, he was also very clear in his heart that although these 2 people are much stronger than ordinary people, they are still far behind him. If they really start, they will not be stronger than the original Yu Jinghai. Therefore, his current attention is all focused on Melba. He looks forward to Melba's ability to give him a clear reply as soon as possible. In this way, as long as she comes to Aurous Hill, he can immediately set up an ocean shipping company and quickly start this business, which will definitely make the Su family more uncomfortable. Pollard finished class and returned to the office. When he saw Charlie, he hurriedly asked him, "Charlie, did Melba return you any information?" Charlie shook his head. "Not yet, Uncle Pollard. Didn't she say that after leaving the base, there will be no internet, so we have to wait until she gets back to communicate with the outside world?" Pollard nodded, sighed, and said, "During the class just now, my right eye was always beating. It didn't feel like a good sign, so I am worried too. Charlie smiled and said, Uncle, don't worry so much now. Please wait patiently for Melba's message. They are 6 hours later than ours here. If they go back at 8 p.m. local time. It's already early in the morning, so please wait steadily. I will contact you as soon as there is a message in the evening. Pollard said helplessly, now there is no good way, I can only wait. After speaking, he hurriedly said to Charlie, let's go, Charlie, I have reserved a seat at the Aurous Hill Archway near the school, and we will eat our lunch there. Aurous Hill Archway is an authentic local catering brand in Aurous Hill. There are several branches in Aurous Hill that specialize in authentic local cuisine and are deeply loved by locals. When he came to the entrance of Aurous Hill Archway, Pollard introduced to Charlie, my ancestors were all native of Aurous Hill for 3 generations. From my birth to adolescence, I have been living in Aurous Hill. Later I went to the United States to study. I have been rooted in the United States. I have recently returned to live after a few decades away. I suddenly felt that the food in my hometown is too tempting. I don't get tired of eating it. Although the school's teacher's cafeteria provides a variety of food for free, I still have it at noon every day. I come here and have a bite of authentic Aurous Hill cuisine. After speaking, he asked Charlie, but you have lived in this city for so many years, have you already been tired of eating it? Charlie smiled slightly and said, I have never pursued food. In the 10 years of the orphanage, every day with clear soup and water, I didn't feel anything wrong. Later, when I went to work at a construction site, I felt like steamed buns every day don't feel bad. Pollard couldn't help sighing. The days you lived before the age of 8, few people in this world can compare, and you fell to the bottom for so many years. How did you adapt? Charlie smiled and said, when I was very young, my parents taught me not to be happy with things or sad for myself, so for me, there is nothing I need to adapt to. In my opinion, it makes no difference whether to pamper yourself or eat chaffy vegetables. Pollard said with emotion, you are exactly the same as your mother. When we were undergraduate, your mother not only won the full scholarship by her ability, but she also worked in the restaurant outside the school every day during her spare time. The degree is also very frugal, never extravagant and wasteful. I remember at that time, at the end of each semester, your mother would use the money she saved for a semester to travel, and she was a backpacker who traveled poorly. At that time, we all thought that your mother must have poor family conditions. We learned later. The strength of your mother's family is the best in the world. Charlie said with a smile, I remember her as indeed very frugal. She always taught me how to save money and not waste it. Even a grain of rice should not be left when eating. This is the same as my dad. It's very similar, the two of them actually had no pursuit of material things. Pollard agreed, so your mother and your father could come together. When they should be young and frivolous, they were already out of material pursuits and low-level tastes. Unlike us, they thought about everything every day when they were young. Earn money and spend money, and sell fame and reputation. With that said, Pollard stepped into the hotel first and made a please gesture to Charlie. Charlie hurriedly followed him in, when the lobby on the first floor of the hotel was already full of people. The local restaurant in Aurous Hill is quite similar to the tea house in the capital. Basically, the first floor is a lobby with many tables and people, so the environment is relatively noisy, but most people like this messy feeling. And in the very center of the first floor, there is a small stage for people to play and sing local operas. At this time, 2 actors are singing kunku opera on the stage. After Pollard came in, he pointed to the stairs and said to Charlie, Charlie, I have reserved a seat on the 2nd floor. The upstairs is cleaner. Let's go up. Okay. Moving to the 2nd floor, the environment was a little cleaner. When a waiter saw the two coming up, he hurried to the front and said politely, Professor Watt, you are here. Pollard nodded and smiled. It's still in the old position. I've said hello to your manager. The waiter said, our manager has already told me, you two come with me. The seat that Pollard chose was a deck by the window, a small square table made of logs, and the 4 sides could seat 4 people, so the two sat leaning against the window. Pollard pushed over a menu and said to Charlie, Charlie, come order and see what you like to eat. Charlie waved his hand and said with a smile, Uncle, it's better for you to choose, and I will eat whatever you order. After speaking, he suddenly found two familiar figures not far away by the window. These two figures, one old and one young, are the old man and grandchild he saw when he was in Pollard's office. Charlie was slightly surprised in his heart, but he didn't show any clues, but he naturally closed his gaze back. At this time, Dan and Mike didn't know, the person they were looking for was sitting not far behind them. They came a little earlier, the food was already ready, and they had been eating for a while. While eating, Mike asked Dan, "Grandpa, do you have any preliminary plans to stay in China this time?" Dan shook his head and said, "Let's take a step and move slow. I vaguely think that coming to Aurous Hill this time will be a chance, so I don't plan to leave until the chance appears." Mike nodded lightly, trying to say something, but looked at the surrounding environment and endured it again. At this time, Dan's cell phone rang. He glanced at the screen, saw that Changfeng was calling, and then pressed the answer button. On the phone, Changfeng asked, "Uncle Dan, did you find out who is the dragon?" Dan said helplessly, "We have just arrived in Aurous Hill for a few hours, and it can't be so fast." Changfeng asked again, "Uncle Dan, after you find him, are you sure to kill him?" Dan's expression changed, and he said solemnly, "I just promised to check it for you. I wouldn't do what you said." Changfeng said anxiously, "What's the use of investigation alone? It can't be solved by finding it out. Isn't that the same? I had a nightmare last night and lost all the copper coins for the whole night. All the fucking words are upside down. Anxiety is about to force out my brains. If I don't get rid of this confidant concern, I won't be able to sleep peacefully in the future." Dan said in a cold tone, "Changfeng, I only do 3 things in my life. These 3 things are watching, calculating, and correcting. To see and calculate is to discover problems, and to correct them is to do what I can. The way to help you improve the problems I found, this definitely does not include the kind of thing you just said. If you want to find someone to do that kind of abuse, then you should look for another wise man." Changfeng on the other end of the phone suddenly became silent. After touching for half a minute, Changfeng also said in a cold tone, "If this is the case, then uncle, you will help me find out who the born dragon is, and then tell me the name and information of the other party. You don't need to worry about the rest." Dan was a little angry, but quickly suppressed the anger in his heart and said lightly, "Well, if there is nothing else, I will hang up first." Changfeng said coldly, "Uncle Dan, please." When Dan finished the call, the opposite Mike hurriedly asked, "Grandpa, what happened?" Dan sighed and said, "It's not convenient to say here, I'll tell you later when we go out." Mike nodded, no longer asked, and bowed his head to eat. Not far away, Charlie, because of his extremely keen senses, had already heard the conversation between Dan and Changfeng. Hearing Dan call the other party Changfeng, he knew that Changfeng was on the phone. In this way, the 2 people were sent by Changfeng to find him. Chapter 2629. What made Charlie feel a little surprised was that Changfeng would even look for feng shui people to investigate him. Although the old man said vaguely on the phone just now, the key points he mentioned still have very clear directions. For example, he said that he is only responsible for reading, calculating, and correcting. This is the way of a feng shui master. The role of a feng shui master is, in a larger sense, like the prime minister of the ancient country. He could discover the problems and could provide solutions to the problems, but he was not a military commander, couldn't kill people, or lead soldiers to fight. Perhaps, thousands of people would die because of the prime minister's words, but the prime minister's own hands were never bloody. Of course, not all prime ministers in history were honest gentlemen, so in feng shui masters, there are naturally those who seek wealth and kill lives. However, in Charlie's view, the old man in front of him seemed to be persistent. It was his attitude that made Charlie decide to wait and see for the time being and let him go. Otherwise, he will choose to start first. Dan didn't know that the real dragon fate he was looking for was actually in the same restaurant with him. Since they arrived early and the food was served early, when Charlie and Pollard first started to eat their food, he and Mike had already settled the bill, and the grandfather and grandson left the restaurant together. Charlie did not put too much energy on the grandfather and grandson but kept asking Pollard about his mother's deeds back then. For a long time, Charlie only understood the side of his mother as a wife and mother, but didn't know what she looked like on the other side. Now, through Pollard's introduction, he can finally make the image of his mother in his memory more three-dimensional. After eating meal for more than an hour, Pollard has been talking endlessly about Charlie's mother Margaret's deeds back then, and Charlie has never got tired of listening, and even wished not to go all day, just sitting here and listening. Pollard's voice was smoking straight, and it was not too early again, so he drank mouthful of water and said to him, "Oh, what happened to your mother back then? It may not be possible to finish it in a few months. Today let me tell you to this point here first, I still have classes in the afternoon, so I have to go back early." Upon hearing this, Charlie said hurriedly, "Okay uncle, then I won't disturb your work this afternoon." Pollard nodded and exhorted, "Melba's situation, you must help me pay more attention to it. Once you have any information, don't worry about how late it is, you must tell me as soon as possible, please." Charlie agreed without hesitation, "Uncle, rest assured, I will notify you as soon as I have a message." Pollard said, "Then you will be hardworking." When the two came out of the hotel, Pollard asked Charlie, "Charlie, what are your arrangements for the afternoon?" Charlie said, "I'll go to Shangri-La to meet someone." Charlie plans to go to Shangri-La to see Isaac. Since Changfeng wants to find out and kill him, he will definitely have other after skills. He must take precautions in advance. At the same time, he must find opportunities to kill before the trouble occurs. Local governments also need Isaac's cooperation. Pollard didn't think much, and said, "Then I will go back to school first, let's keep in touch." "Okay, uncle." Pollard was about to leave when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a fortune-telling stall on the side of the road not far away. Aurous Hill itself is an ancient city, and most of the people here have the habit of looking at fortune-telling, so there are many fortune-telling people on the streets and alleys. If it's the spring season, just find a street in the old city, and there will be a fortune-telling booth every 10 steps on the side of the road. In addition, there are also many forestiers who are waiting at home for customers. This kind of big fairy generally uses the so-called gimmick of asking fairies and the gods, specifically to help people see the picture, and sometimes help people drive evil spirits.